Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. Hungary's parliament is set to select a new president on Tuesday, with former Supreme Court Chief András Baka the only candidate in his election effectively assured by the governing TISA party's two-thirds majority. He would replace Tamás Sulyok, the last president elected under Viktor Orbán's government, whose mandate was terminated in July following a constitutional amendment. Joining us now from Slovakia is Orsolya Ráczová, senior analyst at Eurasia Group. Good to have you with us.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
So, Orsolya, let's look first at this new candidate, potentially new president. I mean, it's going to be a big day. Who is this man himself, a Supreme Court judge? But tell us a bit more about him and why has Magyar chosen him for this role?
Yeah, indeed, it's a big day. Hungary will very likely have a new president as soon as today already. As you said, he has a legal background. He served at the Constitutional Court, which I believe does prepare him well for this job. He is clearly a good expert. He also had many other positions, both in Hungary as well as internationally, so he is respected. When he was removed from the Constitutional Court, it was a controversial decision, and he even went against it. So essentially, Péter Magyar is bringing someone back who was removed back in the day during the previous regime. So I think this is a symbolic move to bring someone back. And another important thing I would want to emphasize about him is that for him, the separation of powers is something that he has been emphasizing quite a lot, and this is what TISA has been saying as well, that the separation of head of state as well as government is something crucial, and this is what the new government is trying to rebuild, and I think for that he is a good candidate. Also, rule of law and implementation, or as some people say, restoration of the rule of law will be a priority for him. So I think for him a key challenge will be to rebuild this largely ceremonial role, which is the president's role. I think he's a good candidate for it, but it's not going to be easy once he is, of course, in office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and right now we're looking at the Hungarian parliament choosing. We know that TISA has that supermajority, the two-thirds majority, so this is pretty much a done deal. At the same time, we have movements, or the announcement at least, from Mr. Orbán's party, Fidesz, who's saying they're boycotting this process. So again, symbolism there, what can they effectively do? What does that tell us?
Yes, Fidesz did not nominate a candidate. They could have done it, they didn't, and the other party in the parliament, they didn't have the power alone to do it, and that's why basically we only have one candidate. If Fidesz does not take part in the parliamentary voting, that would not be the first time. They have been doing this repeatedly over the past couple of months, but this is something the opposition has done before in Hungary, even when it was not Fidesz, which was the opposition. So this is a symbolic move. I think it's clear for everybody that TISA has a supermajority, so the vote will very likely pass, and the president will be confirmed as soon as today already, and there is not much Fidesz can do about it. Of course, if they still showed up and voted and expressed their opinion, they could do it. But as you said, this is more of a symbolic move, which they are trying to do.
Also, speaking of symbolism, let's talk about the predecessor, President Sulyok, who was removed. There was that constitutional amendment not that long ago. He was removed by TISA. What do we make of that as well? I mean, this is also something quite stark. I mean, we were breaking from this Orbán era, but some may look at that and say, well, they might question how that's come about. Tell us a little bit more about how this amendment came about and what that means that the president has been removed.
Yeah, I think there are two reasons behind this that I would emphasize. One is clearly, as you mentioned, the symbolic part. Sulyok was part of the previous regime. He did not necessarily challenge the government at any point. It was debated a lot whether he was fulfilling the role well enough. He was also not an outstanding president. A lot of people did not even know who is the president and what were his key movements on the legislative agenda. For example, comparing to Zuzana Čaputová in Slovakia, who was a very powerful president, both symbolically and legislatively. This was not the case for this president, and everybody knows it. So it's a symbolic move to remove this person, and also this is a fulfillment of Magyar's promise. Just to remember that during election night, I believe it was one of Magyar's immediate promises after it was clear that he's gonna win to remove the president. So he's fulfilling that role. That promise. And another important point is more on the legislative part. The president is largely ceremonial, that's true, but the president can also send legislation for review to the Constitutional Court or even veto legislation. Of course, with the supermajority, all of this can be overridden, including the veto. But the point is that with these legislative moves, the president can delay the process of adopting new legislation. And if you're racing against the clock, if you're trying to meet, for example, the end of August RRF deadline, or you just want to fulfill your legislative agenda as quickly as possible, then these delays can cause issues for the government. So there is, of course, this concern always that while the president is largely ceremonial, but it can delay the legislative process. And this was one of the concerns some of the experts voiced, that yes, the president could have done that throughout August or even July to delay Magyar's legislative agenda. So I believe this is also part of the reason. This is more of a practical reason. I think the bigger issue is the symbolism behind the whole move, and kind of starting with a clean slate. Mm-hmm.
Now, also, you mentioned promises by Péter Magyar, the Prime Minister. Exactly on that, that's my next question, because during the campaign, I mean, a lot of things were promised in terms of changing Hungary completely from within. He's in that process right now, but one of those also was about how presidents are chosen. Right now, if we're looking at Parliament in Hungary, that's today, it remains largely a matter for Parliament. But in that, I think one of the promises Magyar has said that he would put this kind of selection to the people, to popular vote. There's a think tank, I believe, in Budapest called Political Capital, and they're saying that this might actually happen in the autumn. What do you make of that? Will this remain as it was in Hungary, or will Magyar keep this promise, then move this to a popular vote?
Yeah, I would agree with Political Capital. I think this is a quick fix that they had to do. Some people even argue that they were not very well prepared for this, even though this was a primary promise. There has been some hasty nominations which were criticized throughout the process. In the end, they chose a candidate who accepted the nomination and who fits with his profile into this role. But it has been a bit chaotic in the beginning, the whole nomination process. So I do think that they simply wanted and needed to do it because it was one of the first promises, and organize a referendum or a popular vote takes time, and that would have been very difficult to manage throughout the summer, probably not even possible. So this might very well be a temporary solution. We haven't heard much concrete about a potential plan to make the legislative change to be able to organize a popular vote and have the president voted by the popular vote. I think that still awaits us. I do think it's possible that we will get back to this conversation in September and see how it goes. But for now, there are other priorities, and that's That's to make sure that Hungary does have a president at this point, and the Magyar government can continue its legislative agenda and unlock the EU funding. And one thing to mention is that the government and the Prime Minister had to deal with an energy crisis due to the heat wave and the high dependence on the nuclear power plant, which also slowed down the legislative process. So I think that also contributes to the fact that things moved a bit slower, so we need to take into consideration that the government cannot do everything at the same time.
Just really last one really quickly, if we're looking at past presidents of Hungary, it was a bit of a turbulence, if you can call it that. I think Mr. Schmidt was forced to resign. I think it was in 2012, I believe it was, over plagiarism. Katalin Novak resigned 2024. There was that scandal which actually propelled Magyar to his position very much. Now we have Sulyok who's removed just now. Is this sort of indicative of presidential runs in Hungary, or are we going to see something different?
I don't think it's necessarily indicative. We also had presidents who served for more than one mandate. Yes, there has been some scandals over the past more than 10 years which involve the president, and this is exactly what I meant by that this new president, one of the tasks of the new president is to restore the original role and prestige that the president as the head of state, as an independent head of state who is away from everyday politics and scandal to reinstate it. So yes, it has definitely had a stigma on the president. So yes, I don't think that this determines him and his future, but he will need to do some rebuilding, and I think that he will need to also lead by example.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we have a new Prime Minister in Hungary, Péter Magyar, and I think from around 2 p.m. on Tuesday, looks like there will be a new president as well. Look, thanks so much for that. Really appreciate that. Orsolya Ráczová, always a pleasure having you with us here from the Eurasia Group.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
And thank you for watching World Talks, but do stay right here for more news and commentary on TVP World. Goodbye.